This episode is brought to you by TaxAct. Don't do your taxes alone. Join TaxAct's National Admin Night. Admin nights are social gatherings for getting through your to-do list. So get ready for a night of fun, finding deductions, and filing taxes with TaxAct, where you can file your federal and state return for just $49 through April 8. Let's get together and get them over with. Visit taxact.com/admin-night for details.
Tuesday, February 28th marks 1 year since we launched the DSR Daily Brief. We're showing our thanks by providing you with our best sale price ever on membership. From now through March 4th, visit thedsrnetwork.com/buy and enter code DAILYBRIEF to receive 50% off our regular membership price of $50 per year or $5 per month. Members receive access to bonus content, an ad-free listening experience, exclusive blog posts, an invitation to join the DSR Slack community, and more. This is a one-time only offer, so act now. Visit thedsrnetwork.com/buy and enter code DAILYBRIEF to receive 50% off. Thank you for your support.
Welcome to The Secret Life of Cookies, where we try to solve the world's problems through the miracle of carbohydrates, one recipe at a time, with host Marissa Rothkopf and her dog, Bosco.
Hello, today's guest is U.S. National Editor of the Financial Times, Ed Luce. I want to get this recording done pretty quickly because usually I talk about Bosco in my podcasts, but here today I have both of my cats sitting within inches of each other, which can only mean that mayhem and chaos and a lot of fur will be flying very soon. So let's get to this. And thank you all for joining us. Crack open a tin of Heinz baked beans and enjoy.
Hello there, and welcome to The Secret Life of Cookies. I have a very special guest on my podcast. Someone who often appears on my brother's podcast, but it's special because you're here with me, his baby sister. I have Mr. Ed Luce from the Financial Times, among other places, but mostly from the Financial Times as the U.S. National Editor. You also produce the Swamp Notes newsletter, and that's my favorite thing. I love that. I love the back and forth.
Oh, thank you. I feel like I'm graduating to be a full member of the Rothkopf Academy by appearing on The Secret Life of Cookies. So it's a delight to be here with you, Marissa.
Yeah, welcome to it's the cheapest degree is the Secret Life of Cookies portion of the Rothkopf Academy, but I thank you. And you'll notice that I pronounce our name differently. David is a Rothkopf because he wants people to pronounce his name, and I just want to be, I don't know, sort of obnoxious. I want to thank you, first of all, to the audience, we have not met before, except for once at my brother's wedding. And it was really just in passing, but you will forever have an extraordinarily warm place in my heart because you, in a sense, defended my honor. Maybe you don't even remember, but you were sitting there with a clutch of people, and I had, wandered over in that sort of, hi, how are you sort of way, said hello. And one of the people you were sitting with said to me, oh, you're David's sister. Are you his older sister? To which I have to point out for people here that I'm 11 years younger. 11, not 2, not 18 months, 11 years younger than my brother. And I wasn't drunk enough to handle that comment. But you did for me with fantastic aplomb. And you said, you should never ask a woman her age. I also said something like, obnoxiously, like, yeah, and this is just my stomach. I'm not pregnant either. So I was feeling a little testy, and you?
I'm delighted I did that. And I mean, I hope I added that you look a generation younger than your brother. So maybe I wanted to let down the offending person gently, but that's very plain to see.
See how good you are? That's brilliant. So well raised. I've been reading a lot in the news that King Charles is having difficulty finding people who will call him king. No, people who will come and perform at his coronation. I was just wondering if anybody had maybe reached out to you yet.
Unfortunately, I've got a dentist appointment that Otherwise, I would certainly consider it.
No, it's so hard to get a dentist appointment sometimes months in advance.
Yeah, I mean, and you don't want to let it go when you've got it. Because I'm British, a dentist appointment comes around less often than a coronation. So I've got to crown my teeth. Got to crown my teeth
Crown your teeth.
rather than
I like it. As the wife of a British person, I've been told not to make jokes about British teeth. However,
I can take it.
Typically on this show, we cook together. Today, we're going to be talking about cooking, and I think you suggested the dish as one of your finer moments of culinary aptitude, and that is, I'm showing him here. What am I showing the audience here, or you yourself here?
You're showing half of a haute cuisine dish called baked on toast.
Baked beans on toast, and here is the toast. Delightfully whole grain, every grain humanly possible in this piece of toast. Do you want to just talk? And it was actually made in Britain. So this is a true can. It has just the right amount of sugar, which is a lot.
Yeah, there's some very weird history there because baked beans, of course, come from the United States and Heinz is an American company. There's some very weird history where it branches off into this very idiosyncratic British Heinz version of baked beans that is only made in Britain and Britain and Ireland. My wife's from Ireland, and I don't want to omit them from the glory and the culpability.
That's right. Even though today is St. David's Day, we should be making like some Welsh cakes or bara brith or something like that.
Or another staple of my childhood, Welsh rarebit, which is cheese on toast.
Cheese on toast. And if you had a choice between Welsh rarebit and this, do you want to talk people through quickly how to make this before we get on to the important topics of the day?
It's very complicated. I mean,
family recipe.
Wouldn't know where to start. Well, you make a piece of toast and then you heat the beans and you put it on the toast.
Wait, do I take it out of the can first?
Yeah, I mean, you could actually just eat it out of the can if you want to get rid of the toast. That's another method.
If I'm on a low carb diet, maybe I should just eat it out of the can.
Yeah.
So you don't butter your toast?
You can do that, and you can put a sprig of parsley on top of the baked bean.
You grew up way fancier than my husband, but I like the idea of decorating it. His fancy trick is to add a spoonful of mustard to it.
Oh, I hadn't heard that one. So that's a special twist.
That's my culinary training for you.
In France, of course, they call it haricot rouge avec biscotte. Of course, it's very fine dining, but they don't actually have it in France. They would call it that if they had it.
If they had it, they probably would, and they wouldn't have it.
No, they really wouldn't.
Well, I think they could. So everybody, if you haven't had beans on toast, I have to say it's quite delicious. I used to eat it when I was like burning calories, I rode at university, so I was like burning calories. That was like fill a gal up,
When I was an infant and then a child and then a growing child, I just refused to eat meat, which confounded my mother, basically, because it's sort of obligatory to eat it 3 times a day, or at least was in traditional British situations. And so she just struggled for things that I could eat, and baked beans on toast doesn't have any meat in it, and neither does Welsh rarebit, for that matter, or cauliflower cheese. So those became the stock things she'd use to fill me up, and they do fill you up. They've got all the nutrients. Mm-hmm. They offend the sensibilities of more cultured continental cousins, but they do the trick if you're a mother desperate to ensure your child has the calories in his system.
Or a poor student, right? And it contains, I think it says back here, vitamin stodge. That's the vitamin it has. Little known British vitamin stodge. Would you prefer this over a chip buddy?
Well, it depends on the time of day. But what I go through for the maximum healthy option, which is what they give you on an airline. I don't fly anymore because I hate the airline, but British Airways does serve really good chip butty. It also serves really good Devon cream tea with clotted cream. That's a Japanese bullet train to a coronary. But, if you're going to have a heart attack, you might as well enjoy it.
I've never seen a chip buddy on a British Airways flight, but I've had the lovely little cream tea with the little Rhoda's Cornish cream and the little, very good, with the little crusty top.
They are good.
I can't believe they served the chip buddy.
The clotted cream scones. And of course, you can get into high and low politics on how do you pronounce scone? Is it scone or scone?
I've had the great Simon Majumdar on, who's a well-known British chef and judge of all things food, and he's much of the scone camp as well.
Yeah, it's just what you're raised with. My wife is very much a scone. I mean, she isn't herself, but that's how she pronounces it. And so that's a divide in the household. There's lots of other words that would also apply.
I guess if it's not too touchy a question, I have to ask you, how are you raising your daughter then?
Well, she's not the mother of my daughter. Both of us, both my wife and I, had what she calls starter marriages.
Good. Mm-hmm.
We're now on the real one. So she very sensibly excuses herself from disciplinary upbringing questions.
Mm-hmm. And does your daughter know how to pronounce words like 3-0 American style or British?
She's bilingual. Her mother is Indian, so she's trilingual. She just switches accent depending on who she's with.
It's a very good skill. Yeah, my children woe betide them if they say 30 or water. I mean, they do among their friends, but not here. What? Anyway, we have some other vaguely more intense things to talk about. And one is the passing or soon to be passing of former President Jimmy Carter and his legacy. And for most Americans, the quip is, oh, well, he wasn't much of a president, but gosh, look what he did afterwards. But you wrote a wonderful piece for the FT taking that to task.
Yeah, I would take that to task. I think he was branded by the super effective Reagan Hollywood brand machine, and as sort of hapless, weak, indecisive, preachy, lots of things that really stuck, and that have even sort of the more inquiring minds that just find it hard to get past that. But I think if you look at the substance of what Carter achieved, not just on foreign policy, which is what I was focusing on in that piece, but domestically, he's a very consequential president. And what regardless of where you stand on Cold War sort of muscular post-détente politics, it didn't begin with Reagan. It began with Carter, partly because in that sort of famous feud between Brzezinski, his national security advisor, and Cy Vance, his Secretary of State, it was Brzezinski who won the argument, and partly because Brezhnev, the Soviet Union's then leader, was clearly on Brzezinski's side unwittingly, because he took a lot of aggressive actions, including the invasion of Afghanistan and the near invasion of Poland, that made the Cy Vance sort of more dovish view of the world look less and less relevant to Carter and less compelling. So Carter put in place what we then came to think of as Reaganism, and that had consequences, regardless of where you stand on the merits. This was not a weak and feckless president. These were very decisive moves. And history doesn't really recall most of that.
Think Verizon is expensive? Think again. Anyone can bring their AT&T or T-Mobile bill to a Verizon store today, and we'll give you a better deal. So bring us your bill. Walk in, run in, pogo stick in, teleport if you can. Ride on the back of a rollerblading yak, or fly in on the wings of a majestic falcon. Any way you can, bring your AT&T or T-Mobile bill to a Verizon store today, and we'll give you a better deal on the best network. Based on Root Metrics Best Overall Mobile Network Performance, U.S. Second Half 2025. All rights reserved. Must provide very recent postpaid consumer mobile bill in the name of the person redeeming the deal. Additional terms, conditions, and restrictions apply.
Refreshing Wild Cherry Cola meets smooth cream. The treat you deserve. Pepsi Wild Cherry and Cream. Treat yourself.
Right. And I hope maybe in his passing, people will kind of come to understand it, that Reagan really was the winner in terms of Carter's actions, right? And in that sort of Hollywood style that he had, played it to the hilt with the help of Roger Ailes, I might add, someone who I would like to talk about later in the podcast about, oh, I think you can guess. But it struck me, I guess, because I'm so much younger than my brother and was like literally like much was a kid when Carter was president, didn't really get the sense of how his legacy then, like with the left, was also troubled. That Bill Clinton and even Barack Obama treated him like a hot potato. And I don't quite understand how that followed through even into Barack Obama time. I think it was vast amounts of time passed.
I think that both of them, both Clinton and Obama, picked up the conventional wisdom that Carter was a loser. And nobody wants to sort of have loser-ishness rub off on them. So they just didn't want to associate themselves with Carter. Carter's also, he's very hard to typecast, because he was a Southern governor and a Baptist from Southern Baptist Convention, but he was a liberal Southern Baptist Convention, which is sort of contradiction in terms nowadays. In those days, it was more of a broad church. And he was preachy, he could be quite tedious. He wasn't a very good public speaker. He was no orator. And, Americans, I guess, didn't particularly want to be reminded of, a president who wore a cardigan and turned the thermostat down and made sure the lights were turned out before he went up to bed. I mean, that just sort of implied a certain modesty and limitation that is quite un-American. But with the sort of passage of time, you look back at what he did in terms of investments in clean energy and what he was saying about climate change and dependence on fossil fuels from the Middle East and the need to get off them. He started things which, if Reagan had picked up on those, would have transformed America way, way, way long ago. Some of the things we're doing now were set in motion then, and then there was just this long break. So I'd say he was very far-sighted on a number of things. And energy is, it's not an esoteric subject. It's central to everything we do.
Every single thing that we do. It's absolutely true. And the fact that Reagan made such a show of taking down solar panels, which now, if a president put up solar panels, everybody under the age of 40 would be really, really happy, right? And that sort of responsibility of turning the lights off would be fantastic talking points among kids, as opposed to what it was back then. I think, we have changed a lot. And unfortunately, if we'd kept doing what he was doing, we wouldn't quite be where we are today, I think, as far as the climate.
I think that's absolutely right. He was very damaged by bad timing too, because you had the Iranian Revolution and you had that oil price hike. Any president would have had the inflation that resulted. And he did something that, again, regardless of what you think of the issue, was lasting and consequential and self-harming politically, in which he appointed Paul Volcker to head the Federal Reserve. And he knew full well that Paul Volcker was a man of tough medicine and a hawk, an inflation hawk. And he jacked up interest rates to the highest they've ever been, really, since the Second World War, which killed inflation, but it also killed Carter's presidency. And Carter knew the risks he was taking when he appointed Volcker and appointed him nevertheless. That's very different to the kind of Bill Clinton, let's check the polls before we do the tiniest thing.
Right. And it shows in hindsight how responsible he was. Because shortly into Reagan's presidency, there was an uptick in the economy. There's improvement in the economy because of the cod liver oil of 20% in, inflation or whatever. You also talked about that if we don't pay attention to how President Carter dealt with the Cold War, or that we are in a sense doomed to repeat things if we don't see what he did diplomatically at the time. As we go forward into a possible new Cold War, or maybe you even want to call it a Cold War with, say, China.
Yeah, I mean, previous sort of decade or so under Ford, Nixon, Kissinger, of course, being all the way through, had been détente. And détente, was a relaxation of tension between the Soviet Union and America. And therefore, people's blood pressure did come down, but it did entail a price. And the price was essentially what we would nowadays think of as a John Mearsheimer sphere of interest view of the world, which is, don't worry, we're not going to agitate the Poles or the Romanians or the Czechs or the Hungarians, or let alone the nationalities within, the non-Russians within the Soviet Union. That's all your playing field. And you keep out of Cuba and you respect the Monroe Doctrine, and we'll negotiate limits to nuclear weapons. And, that might have been a price worth paying for reduction of tensions. But it's something that Carter basically moved 180 degrees from. And he did court, oh, what a lovely cat. We have two.
You do?
Yes.
This is Clyde.
Oh, well, hello, Clyde. That's a noble name for a noble cat.
Very fluffy, noble cat.
Oh, well, if I'd known, I'd have brought my two cats up to compete.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Are they fluffy?
They're not there, but they are black.
Oh, very good. Very good. Yes. Clyde, for anybody at home, is a sort of mink black color. A little bit of cream filling on his chest.
So, but
I'm sorry.
To complete the point before Clyde very gently interrupted, is that, Carter thought that the road to Moscow lay through Eastern Europe, and Nixon thought the road to Eastern Europe lay through Moscow. And that was a very different approach to the Cold War, and actually, I think, proved by results a more effective way of bringing down the Soviet Union peacefully.
Right.
At this point in the podcast, we must bid farewell to our non-subscribers. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to become a subscriber to the Deep State, you'll enjoy perks that unlock special conversations only available to members, and not just for The Secret Life of Cookies, but for all the Deep State Radio podcasts. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us. I hope you have a great week. Ed Luce can be found at That Salmon Pink Financial Times and on Twitter at Edward G. Luce. You can find me on Substack at marissarothkopf.substack.com, and of course on Twitter. If you can, please leave a review in the Apple Store. The more reviews, the easier it is to find the podcast. Wouldn't that be nice? So thank you and have a wonderful week.
Every act of change begins with a neighbor. When neighbors connect through the Feeding America network, small actions ripple into lasting impact. Feeding America, led by neighbors. Give now to end hunger at feedingamerica.org.